Obviously, AASHTO wants to talk about the highway bill, and we look forward to a good highway bill process through the Environment and Public Works Committee. I'll start by saying that Chair Capito has been very good to work with on this and other public works issues, and our teams are working well together. She has said that she hopes to be able to develop a highway bill in the spring, and we're almost spring, so now's the time, and we look forward to input from all of you into that process. One of the things that we are seeing is how transportation is more and more affected by extreme weather. We see that in Rhode Island with essential coastal roads that are now at risk of being simply disrupted, blockaded, flooded out by sea level rise and ocean storms. We had I-95 closed a few years ago for flooding from a massive rain event associated with Superstorm Sandy. So we need to make sure that as extreme weather becomes more and more significant, we are ready for it. While Rhode Island, the ocean state, sees these coastal risks at the forefront, Western states see wildfire risks as well. And so we need to make sure that whether it's flooding from rain, flooding from the sea, or wildfire, that the U.S. transportation system is ready for a more extreme and dangerous physical environment. So that's going to be a good part of the new work that we try to accomplish in this bill. Because we're all Americans and all together in this American economy, I also want to flag for you the warning signals that are coming fairly widely in the financial system right now that the extreme weather that fossil fuel emissions are causing is beginning to disrupt insurance markets in significant ways. I think Florida is probably first and worst right now. If you have a friend in Florida or a house in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. If you talk to your friend and say, hey, how are things going with homeowners insurance and mortgages down there, you will likely get an earful because things are getting really dangerous. And unfortunately, when the insurance markets collapse for homeowners insurance, that means mortgage markets collapse as well. And when mortgage markets collapse, property values sink because there are fewer buyers around because so many American buyers need a mortgage. And this is pretty serious. At every step of the way, the warnings are pretty profound. The U.S. head of Aon Insurance has warned about the insurance collapse. The biggest insurance company in the world has warned about the insurance collapse. The chairman of the Federal Reserve has warned about entire regions of the country becoming unmortgageable because insurance cascades into mortgages. Freddie Mac, the big mortgage giant, its chief economist has warned that the insurance collapse cascades into a mortgage collapse, cascades into an economic collapse. And there are multiple economic warnings about an economic collapse. One of them is a cover story about a year ago in The Economist magazine warning of a $25 trillion hit to global real estate markets. So Ernest Hemingway said, he was asked how he went broke, and he said, gradually, and then all at once. And I'm afraid that's the way insurance crises work. They build gradually, and then a tipping point or catalyst happens, and suddenly you're in a crisis, and it happens seemingly all at once. So we need to really prepare for this. There's a huge transportation element to it, but this is economy-wide stuff, what economists would call systemic risk, meaning it's not confined to the sector that's hurt. It takes down the whole economic system, just like 2008 did, which is in fact one of the warnings from the Freddie Mac chief economist. So it's going to be really important to try to get this right in a lot of ways, but all of you, as you plan for, we don't want to go through 2008 again if we can help it. So onto the bill. We obviously need the bill to be bipartisan if it's going to pass. And again, I credit the chairman, Shelley Moore Capito, for the way that she has conducted herself in the committee. We've had very open information requests out to all concerned. All of our members, Republican and Democrat, have had the opportunity for input, and that process continues. So the bipartisan internal legislative work necessary to put together a good highway bill is grinding steadily away. So there is not a partisan problem on this bill in the Senate. What there is a problem between the legislative and the executive branch. The executive branch is supposed to, according to the Constitution, faithfully execute the laws as Congress passes them. But increasingly, we're seeing this administration refuse to faithfully execute laws and instead pick winners and losers based on things that really don't have anything to do with the underlying responsibility to faithfully execute the laws. We are seeing, for instance, significant sums being held up that are supposed to create infrastructure to support the drivers in America who've chosen electric vehicles. And I think that is the way of the future. Foreign markets suggest that that's the way of the future. And for America to prepare for it seems an obvious responsibility. And yet that is not happening. We also see grants being stopped based on who represents the state in the Senate and in the House. So-called blue states are being punished by the White House through the Office of Management and Budget, and funding is being stopped that has no real reason for being stopped except the obvious, which is when you look at what states are affected, it's all blue states. So we're going to need to figure out how to deal with that. It simply doesn't make sense to build a bill in a atmosphere of bipartisan consensus in the Senate and then hand it over to an administration wood chipper that tears the bill apart and only does the part that it likes and uses partisan measures to determine what gets funded and what doesn't. So that's a conversation that we need to continue to have with the executive branch. It's a conversation that is affecting many pieces of legislation going forward. In the Environment and Public Works Committee, the permitting reform bill is presently stalled while we wait for some response from the administration about what they are going to do with the bill that we pass. At the moment, the pause on the permitting reform negotiations has lasted more than a month, and we still don't even have the most basic outreach from the administration, from the cabinet secretaries about resolving these issues. So we'll see where that goes, but it's not a good sign. And I think it would be helpful for all of you to send a signal to the administration. Look, highways aren't partisan and they're not political. I don't care what state they're in. Red drivers and blue drivers alike go down them. We want them safe. We want them accessible. We want them weather resistant to storm, flood, and wildfire. And we should take off our partisan hats when it comes to highways and bridges and just make sure that America has the best infrastructure in the world for the American people. So I remain optimistic that we're going to get this done. And again, the problem is not between Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. The EPW committee is working quite effectively and efficiently in a bipartisan fashion, just the way you would want. So I'll close where I began, which is with an appreciation to the chairman who has maintained that spirit on this bill, on the Army Corps of Engineers bill, the so-called WERDA bill, and on the permitting reform bill. And as soon as we can get some confidence that the administration is going to apply the law fairly and meet its constitutional duty to faithfully execute our laws, then I think we'll have no trouble going forward. So thanks for having me with you this morning, and hope you're all having better weather than we are up here in Rhode Island, where it's still well over knee high.